Hello and welcome to another episode of Mountainside Thoughts here on Heavenward Thinking. Mike and I are talking today about oaths in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 33, so I'm going to read that and we'll dig right in. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, "Do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one." So, Mike, what are your initial thoughts on this as we see the importance about oaths?
So the first thing I noticed is this is another example of Jesus adding something to the law that was previously established, him coming and fulfilling the law. But like we've seen in the last few passages, is he's also adding sort of his own spin on it that makes it an even better and more efficient sort of rule that will keep us from getting into more trouble. So I think basically the key with this is be careful of what you're saying, especially if you're swearing on something. I think it really should, we shouldn't be using God's name in vain or respecting his name in that way, or disrespecting his creation or anything like that with our words, because that can cloud our witness in a way, and make people think, oh, maybe they're not so different than the rest of the world. Because if God is truly our God, to keep his name holy and to not use it as sort of a swear word, because that's disrespectful to him and what he's done for us. And this also shows, like in verse 37, it says, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond that can be the evil one. It's really also talking about honesty and whether our yes and no are actually, we truly mean it. So that way we don't have to really elaborate on it, that we can get to the where we just say, yes, this is true, or whatever we're talking about, on the point where we're trustworthy and honest enough that we don't have to elaborate on it in a way.
Absolutely. I think those are some great points. Of course, we need to be respectful and not take the Lord's name in vain, not misuse his name, not, as you said, not do anything against his creation in that way, but also, as you said, it's about our integrity and our honesty. And are we... do we honor our word? Are we someone who can be depended on? When we say yes to something, is it actually yes? And when we say no to something, is it actually no? Are we going to just be constantly flip-flopping, changing our minds, that kind of a person, unstable, and double-minded and that kind of stuff? Or are we going to be truly committed? Does our word mean something? I think that really, for me here, our word is important. The things we say are important. We need to take it seriously, not just off the cuff say things, not just commit to things that we're not actually going to commit to. And it's very important because that reflects our character, and as you said, it even reflects our testimony. It can affect our witness to people. If we're not trustworthy, if we're not honoring the Lord's name, and if we're not being faithful to the commitments we've made, to when we say something is truthful, when something is a yes or a no, then that's going to hurt our witness. So it's very important that we think about that in our relation to our witness to those around us. What other thoughts would you have on this topic as we wrap up this short section in Matthew chapter 5?
Yeah, I think a nice little piece that kind of came to me during you reading the passage was in verse 35, talking swearing by Jerusalem, that we're not supposed to do that, for it is the city of the great king. So I think there's a certain amount of respect we as Christians should have for Jerusalem in the entire Holy Land that God set apart specific for his people, that we should have respect and honor for that area because of what God has done for them, and for the impact that he's been able to have on them. So I think that's an important thing to remember, is respect to God's holy land as well. And that's something that seems to be a large factor with everything going on in the Middle East and all that unrest there. We need to be supportive of Israel and Jerusalem, God's holy people, and what we're doing.
Absolutely. That's a topic that a lot of Christians shy away from nowadays, because so many Christians are so against Israel. They think that the church has just replaced Israel, so Israel's thrown out. They're no longer God's people, and it's very dangerous to think that way, because when we look at what God says to Abraham specifically, of those who bless you, I will bless; those who curse you, I will curse. So when we are discarding Israel, we do a real damage to ourselves. We're going to be punished if we don't respect Israel. If we're supposed to be praying for the peace of Jerusalem, we're supposed to be respecting and praying for our Jewish brothers and sisters in Christ. And we need to take that seriously. And sadly, as Christians, we've neglected that responsibility. And as you said, there's been so much turmoil over there just in recent months, and what I saw was a lot of people claiming to be Christians, and yet they were criticizing Israel for defending themselves while praising the Palestinians who were raining down rockets on them. So I think as Christians, we need to pay attention, see through the lies of the media, see through the lies that we've developed as false doctrines in our church. And then we really need to get back to supporting God's chosen people, because as we see here, it's important. Jerusalem is the city of the great king. I don't think that's changed. Jesus said it himself, so we can't say Jesus discarded the Old Testament, because we see once again, as we're constantly reminded, Jesus didn't come to throw out the law. He came to fulfill it, as we've talked about so many times. So as we are talking about this whole section, I think that was a great point you made. I would encourage our listeners to really take to heart what we've been talking about this week. Think about it, read it, pray about it, see how it flows. This is a small but yet important passage in the grand context of the Sermon on the Mount that we're going through each week. So really read it and see how the Lord is speaking to you this week. And then join us next week for another episode of Mountainside Thoughts here on Heavenward Thinking.